Could your homeschool benefit from a dose of minimalism? Hi, I'm Rachel from 7 and All, and in this video, I'm going to share very practical tips on how you can apply a little bit of minimalism to your homeschool, no matter your homeschool style. First of all, what is minimalism? Now, probably you're going to get a slightly different definition of minimalism depending on the minimalist you talk to. I describe myself as a very practical minimalist, not the cool kind of minimalist. I am not the Instagram aesthetic minimalist. I have a lot of stuff that's very brightly colored because bright colors are important to me. I like them. But here's my definition of minimalism. For me, minimalism is all about making room for all the things that are very important to you, but not making room necessarily for all the things that are supposedly very important to other people and society in general. So, for example, I'll give you the example of my husband. He has a whole lot of pairs of exercise shoes. Before I married him, I thought all exercise shoes were called tennis shoes and you could wear any pair of them for any sport. Now, he's a very athletic type of person. He plays multiple sports and he has to have different pairs of shoes for every sport. This blew my mind. I had no idea. But this is something very important to him. So he's got a whole collection of shoes for basketball and for soccer and for running, all these different things. But on the flip side, we don't and have never had in our entire marriage a coffee maker or coffee mugs or all the things that are involved with drinking coffee, even though I would say in general most people would think that that's something a household should have, but we don't drink coffee, so we don't have coffee things. So that's just a little example of we definitely have things that to other people would be considered totally unnecessary. I mean, to me, it would be totally unnecessary to have soccer shoes and basketball shoes because I play neither one of those sports. But we don't have the things that seems like the kind of thing you ought to have because other people have it. We just focus on having what is important and what's necessary in our lifestyle. So the same concept can be applied to your homeschool. In your homeschool, I encourage you to make room for what is important to you and to your kids. Not making room in space, room in time, room in your schedule for all the things that are very important to other people, to Instagram homeschool, to homeschool in a general theoretical idea, but the things that are important and necessary to you and to your family's homeschool. Now, what are some practical tips to apply this to your homeschool? What are some practical ways to apply minimalism to your homeschool, no matter your homeschool style? First of all, let's talk about books, because homeschoolers and our relationship with books, it's kind of a big deal. Now, I have seen minimalist homeschoolers who they really don't have the big bookshelves of books at all. They just choose getting books from the library, or they don't really do book-based homeschool. They'll do digital-based homeschool and other types of styles so that they don't need to have the giant bookshelves of books. Now, I would say if you want to minimize your homeschooling, have a minimalist homeschool approach, that can coexist with a deep love of books and literature-based learning. I consider myself a minimalist homeschool and I have a big bookshelf. You can have both because it's about what's important to you. Now, what does minimalist homeschooling look like in regards to a big book collection? It might, in a very practical way, look like not holding on to or keeping books that you don't like, that you don't want to read, that you just aren't into and don't appreciate, simply because you spent money on them, simply because the curriculum that you bought suggests this particular book, or simply because everyone on homeschool social media loves this book. I can be a little bit brutal with this. I love books, but that does not mean I love all books. I have found, especially with devotionals, there's some that I've been given, kids devotionals, or there's some that have been super popular and super recommended, and I've come across a copy, or I've had a copy in my collection, and I've tried reading it with my kids, and I've given it quite a few chances, and I'm just like, I just don't like this. Something about this devotional, it just doesn't jive with me. It doesn't jive with the way I want to teach scripture in my family. So I could set it on my bookshelf and let it, fill up part of my bookshelf and add to a ginormous book collection. Or I could say, you know what? This is not a book I am planning to use or want to use. I'm going to pass it on. I'm going to get rid of it. That to me is a minimalist approach to books. I keep books that I know I love, I cherish, I have a purpose for, I actually want to use. Meanwhile, books or curriculum that I don't want to use, I'm not going to hold on to, and they're not going to stay on my bookshelf. Number 2, another big trouble area for homeschoolers is the craft cupboard. Now, you can also, it's going to be the same thing with the bookshelf. You can also be a minimalist homeschooler without saying goodbye to all craft supplies. I think that can be a misconception that, you can't have craft supplies if you're a minimalist homeschooler. No, I would say you can, but I think the collection is going to look a lot different. Number 1, you need to know yourself, and you need to know what kind of crafts you and your children are realistically going to do and realistically going to use. Don't hold on to craft supplies for years that you hate and you know you're not going to use, but it just seems like a good mom would have these craft supplies on hand. Just say no, don't do it. You can have a craft supply station of the essentials. Know yourself. For me, in these early years, there's been times when I've owned only one bottle of paint, and then we just use that paint until it's all used up. And the color was blue, so we painted pretty much everything blue for a while, because I have very little kids and they don't really care what color what color they paint their stuff. Now, if you have older kids, you're probably not going to get away with the one bottle of paint approach, but it's an option. So know yourself. Know what you're realistically going to use, and you don't need to have backups of backups of backups. You could maybe do one bottle of paint, or more realistically, you could do one bottle of several colors of paint that can make a reasonable number of colors to paint with. You can have just one bottle of silver glitter and use it until it's gone, and not replace stuff until it's actually gone. That can be a bit of a tricky thing for homeschool moms, that we tend to see something and buy it for just in case years later. And that can get to a bit of an overwhelming state at some point, where we have a stack of craft paper this high. Like, you probably don't need that much craft paper. I don't know, sometimes toddlers can go through a lot of craft paper in some phases. So maybe sometimes, that's why I'm saying, know your family, know your stage of life, and don't just hold on to things because it seems like a homeschool family should, but have exactly what you're going to have, and you don't have to have any extra. It actually tends to be easier for you and easier for your kids to take good care of your school supplies and craft supplies, your pencils, your markers, and so on, when you just have the one set and you don't have an abundance. I've had the same marker set actually since before I became a parent, a Crayola set of 64 markers. We've just had one. My sons use it all the time, but because I don't have multiple marker sets to keep track of, I just have this one set. All the markers go back in when we're done coloring. It goes back in the same spot on the shelf. I don't have a lot of markers to keep track of. We've been able to just keep using that for years. Number 3, sharing and borrowing is an excellent way to be a more minimalist homeschooler. Chances are you probably have some sort of homeschool community, or you know some people who have some books. That's a good thing. Even here, I'm overseas, even here, I have my mom as part of my homeschool community, and I also do have some real life homeschooling friends. I have borrowed a lot from my mom. She is not the most minimalist homeschooler. She has her own homeschool style. And I, as a minimalist, have benefited from it a lot because I'm able to borrow a book just for a while, or I'm able to borrow a game, or I'm able to borrow some manipulatives. And I've had friends come to me and ask to borrow a teacher's manual for a certain subject, because you might need a new student book, but you don't need a new teacher's manual all the time. So maybe you can borrow someone's teacher's manual that they're not using right now. I would love to see in the homeschool community more of just sharing and borrowing things, because we don't have to, just because we all kind of like the same stuff sometimes doesn't mean we need to all own copies of each other's libraries and copies of each other's game cupboards. Sometimes in your local community you can just share and trade off when you want a new game, or you want some different manipulatives, or you want to look at a different teacher's manual. I would love to build that culture more, and I encourage you to look at how you can build that culture in your own local homeschool community to have a more minimalism for everyone. Know yourself. A huge part of minimalism is knowing yourself. What you realistically brings you joy and what you're realistically going to use. There are some moms out there, I've seen this tip on Instagram of go to Hobby Lobby and buy some small decor items to make themed manipulatives for different seasons and different holidays. So in the fall you can count little tiny pumpkins, and in the spring you can count little tiny rabbits. I am not that kind of mom, and I would never be that kind of mom. I'm the kind of mom who's like, oh, we have a manipulative counting activity. Here's some paper clips. Yeah, we'll use paper clips for that. Or you've got a bunch of Hot Wheels cars. We're gonna use Hot Wheels cars. I'm gonna use what's on hand, what's close by. I'm just not into the cutesy matching to the seasons and the holiday stuff generally all the time. I'll decorate for Christmas. I will. I'm not anti-fun. I'm not. But I am essentially very practical, and so I need to know myself. Even if I think, oh, that spring, those little bunny counters for that spring activity are cute, I don't need to feel like I need those, and I'm not going to invest in those, and I'm not going to store those, because I know for me, at most, I only need one set of manipulative counters. If I ever want to upgrade from the paper clips, I'm only going to need one set, because I don't feel a need to change it out to different seasons or situations. Also, I know myself that I'm not a big fan of games. Maybe this is an area I will try to grow in as my kids grow. It depends. Maybe they won't be a big fan of games, and I'm not going to have to learn to like them. But I know at this point, if I'm seeing other families enjoying games, I don't need to feel FOMO. I don't feel that I need to build my game cupboard all that much, because I know myself. The kind of game I like is Balderdash. I like party games, word games. I don't really like little kids educational games. When I was a kid, I wanted to read books. I didn't want to play games. I don't know what my kids will like, and I am open to, of course, your kids and what's important to them is a part of your homeschool. I'm open to investing in some games as they grow if they turn out that they really love games. But I'm not just gonna hop on to buying board games simply because there's lots of other families having fun with game schooling out there. I'm comfortable where we are, and you don't have to think just because other families enjoy something, I have to do the same thing. Number 5 tip for practical, minimal homeschool is cover all of your important subjects, all the core subjects well, but don't cover the same thing 5 different ways all the time. This is something I think homeschoolers a trap that we can really fall into all that easily. Our kid, spelling, we've got spelling. Spelling is hard, so I'm going to get 5 different spelling workbooks because they all have kind of different approaches, and when we blend them all together, we're going to turn out to be masters at spelling. We'll get spelling UC, we'll get spelling power, we'll get all the different spelling things, and we'll rotate through all of them, or we will do 2 every day because that's doable. They both don't take that long, and in the end we're going to end up being super good spellers. In my experience with spelling, and I've experienced a lot with spelling through all my siblings, Either some kids just get it and some kids just don't get it. And the difference between doing 1 or 2 spelling resources and doing 5 spelling resources at one time is going to be so minimal that it will not be worth the amount of extra time, space, storage, stress, money that it costs. So that's why I say do all your core subjects. Don't cut out core subjects, necessary subjects. Don't cut out science as a way to minimize. But don't feel like you need to teach the same thing multiple different ways for your kids to get it, because a lot of times they expects well of your kids. A lot of times kids will get it. There are a few essential subjects, mainly math and reading, that you can need to tackle the same topic from a couple different ways before you see them latch onto that topic. But do that more on an as needed basis rather than just assuming it as a blanket statement. Because more often I see people doing, okay, we're going to teach the life cycle of a frog. And so we're going to have a hands-on activity with these little frog life cycle things I bought on Amazon, and then we're going to go visit a pond, and then we're going to watch a movie, and then we're going to read a book about the frog, and we're going to do so many different things to learn the life cycle of a frog. When really, with most kids, first, second grade, if you just tell them the life cycle of a frog and how it works, they're probably going to tell you that they already know because they saw it on like Kratz Creatures or some educational TV show they watched when they were 4 years old. So that's kind of the point I'm trying to make. People are investing a lot of time, a lot of energy into resources to teach something in 5 different ways, and then you kind of found out, your kids kind of already knew it. So I would more say, when you're trying to do multiple different ways to attack the same topic, make sure it's something that actually needs to be attacked in multiple different ways, because sometimes your kids already know what you're trying to teach, and a lot of times your kids will learn what you're trying to teach them in a more simple way. And my last point for you today is look at your homeschool carefully. Recognize what is core for you, which is somewhat based on state requirements, but it's also somewhat based on your own family's priorities and lifestyle. Recognize what is core and recognize what is extra. And consider whether you need to do all the extra or whether it would be helpful for you right now to take a step back, choose one extra to do that extra thing well, and then with time, see if it makes sense to add on more than one extra. Maybe you're just going to do one extra at a time, and that's okay. I think there's a really big misconception that extra is where all the fun comes into homeschool and the magic and the beauty. But actually, if we take the time to do it well, if we have discussions, if we can be fully present because we've minimized distractions, we've focused ourselves, when we take the time to do that with the core, actually you can find out that core is magical. Core subjects are fun and they are interesting. There's nothing inherent about math and reading and science and the Bible. For me, the Bible is a core subject. There's nothing inherent about those subjects that makes them inherently boring, so we need to add on extra fun stuff to make it fun. These are fun already. You can do the core with only a little bit of extra and you can still have fun. So you can have fun. There's so much fun just in being together, in reading books, in the memories that you're making through silly conversations throughout the day, through spontaneous crafts and projects and rabbit trails that arise. So don't stress out so much about making homeschool fun through planning so many extras and filling in the whole schedule, but kind of let it happen, but let it happen with an intentional eye toward positive learning, fun relationships. And I think you'll be surprised at how good it will turn out. Alright, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you have any thoughts about minimalism for the normal average homeschooler, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to continue this conversation. Do give this video a like, and if you're new to my channel, go ahead and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye!